Sweet Baby Inc. and similar narrative consultation companies are a plague on the video game industry. They do not care about crafting better characters or telling better stories. They care about making money off of this industry. They will convince companies that there is some big problem with their product or even with their audience, and then they will swoop in and save the day for a few dollars. And now Sweet Baby Inc. is, of course, attacking their critics yet again, saying that they're simply cis white men who are opposed to diversity. I have a few different things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, Sweet Baby Inc. is a company that's been around for a long time, convincing companies that there is a problem and that they suddenly can offer them the solution. But after all of this time of criticism, years at this point, they still don't understand why we don't like them, why we are opposed to them. And of course, these individuals love to play the victim, and that is exactly what they are doing yet again. So for more than a year, Sweet Baby Inc. has attempted to frame backlash from critics against the company as bad faith outrage driven by prejudice rather than legitimate criticism of its role in game development. A recent podcast appearance has only reinforced that perception, this time not through outside interpretation, but through the company's own words and the company it keeps. Now, as I always say, I do not hate the people behind Sweet Baby Inc., even if I completely disagree with their stances, but I do hate the company's existence because I think it is insane that you are so bad at your job, you need to hire another company to tell you how to do it, and a company filled with people who are not storytellers or businessmen or people who are actually listening to customers, nothing like that, just a bunch of randoms who have convinced you that they hold some kind of authority in this industry. And yes, I do think that all of the people that work at Sweet Baby Inc. are grifters, but do I hate them as human beings? No. Though they will constantly try to convince you that that is the case because they are desperate to play the victim because it's the only card that they hold at this point. They have no real authority in this industry. Nobody respects them. Nobody likes them. And they don't have fans running to their defense on social media, and so they just have to say, oh, anybody that dislikes us is an isterophobe. In a now widely circulated episode of the Gaming for the Culture podcast, Sweet Baby Inc. producer Maria Beck participated in a discussion that openly characterized critics of the company as cis men opposed to diversity. While the phrase was introduced by the podcast host, Beck repeatedly agreed with the framing and made no attempt to challenge it or correct it. Early in the discussion, the podcast host framed criticism of SBI's work as coming from a specific demographic: white men, cis white men. We're not interested in the work Sweet Baby Inc. put into for something that was already created. And rather than pushing back, Beck continued the conversation on that premise, repeatedly affirming the host's interpretation and agreeing as the topic resurfaced throughout the episode. Now, of course, these individuals completely ignore the existence of women in this space because it wouldn't help further push their narrative, but we have women in this space like me or Wicked Virtue or Savvy or Toasty who are criticizing them and their actions, but if we push back, they either A, ignore the fact that we are, or B, they say, oh, we're just getting a look at your internalized misogyny and that's the only reason why you're criticizing us, or oh, you're just a pick-me, some kind of insult like that, which I, of course, think is hilarious. I'm criticizing your actions because your actions are dog shit, and the people who are running your company are trash individuals who do not actually care about this industry. You are helping damage this space that millions and millions of people love and appreciate. You are actively hurting an industry that makes hundreds of billions of dollars a year. You are not creating high-quality products, and looking at their lineup, they've had 2 games that have been successful, and it wasn't because of them, it was because they were already established established with fan bases like God of War and Spider-Man. Of course, Spider-Man fans are going to show up, even though that game didn't do as well as they were expecting, but it still did okay. And then God of War Ragnarok did well because you have several God of War games leading up to that point. Besides those games, you have never worked on a title that has been successful because of you and because of your influence. What you are doing is not consulting, you are twisting, you are altering, you are not giving suggestions, you are basically demanding. Oh, if you don't change this, people are going to view you as racist or sexist. If you don't change this, you're actively hurting women and people of color. And that is a mentality that Sweet Baby Inc. pushes, which is why so many of us are opposed to them. It would not be hard for Beck here to clarify, well, we don't necessarily believe every single person that's criticizing us is some terrible individual. I don't think we should put that label on them. This is the quote unquote tolerant left we're talking about here. They are not going to clarify and defend the people that they dislike, even if a complete and utter lie is being pushed about them, because they don't have any respect for anybody who isn't like them. When asked whether developers must come to Sweet Baby Inc. with a narrative outline already prepared, Beck gave a blunt answer: we create those things. That statement directly contradicts years of public positioning that framed Sweet Baby Inc. as a limited advisory service offering feedback rather than authorship. If they were just honest about what they were doing in the first place, sure, we still wouldn't like what they were doing, but I suppose I could have a little bit more respect because they would be clear and concise and it wouldn't be so confusing. But every single day, it's a new lie with them. Every single day, they're pushing a new narrative and they're trying to reframe their company as what they are not. When the conversation turned to backlash, Beck attributed criticism to harassment against her and her colleagues, including Sweet Baby Inc. co-founder and CEO Kim Belair, which this is what they've been doing for years at this point. Criticism does not equal harassment in the real world, but these people live in this echo chamber. They listen to yes men, and really these work environments are filled with toxic positivity. They always say what they feel, even if it is not the truth, and then people reinforce those deranged ideas. Ironically, Beck later expressed frustration that Sweet Baby Inc. does not maintain a public list of projects it has worked on, saying she wished such a record existed. And just a few months ago, we had heard from, I believe it was Kim Belair, that she felt we were not giving her and her company enough of a chance. And I've said this in every SBI video I've made recently. If Kim Belair ever wants to sit down and have a genuine conversation about Sweet Baby Inc. and clear up these quote unquote misunderstandings, she's more than welcome on my channel. I'm more than willing to have a discussion with her. But will that happen? Of course not, because it wouldn't be as easy to label me as a harasser or, of course, a cis white man, because obviously I'm not. I am the other of the two genders. I am a woman, and I definitely don't think that you can be very confused by that. Though it says, taken together, the podcast appearance paints a consistent picture. Sweet Baby Inc. claims to be misunderstood, yet openly describes creating core narrative material. It insists criticism is driven by prejudice, yet declines to engage with the substance of that criticism. And when offered a friendly platform, it confirms on the record the very concerns players and developers have raised for years. And this is just such a sad situation, not for Sweet Baby Inc., but for gamers, because these are the types of people that companies are hiring: liars, grifters, individuals who do not care about this industry, people who want it to change, people who say that it is not diverse enough, that it is not inclusive enough, people who are saying we need radical change and we need certain individuals within our audiences, aka simply gamers, to not be listened to. And, well, companies have worked with Sweet Baby Inc. a lot over the last few years. Will that continue? I don't necessarily think so. We haven't heard of them being paired up on any large titles recently. The only one that we know of is Wolverine, and that is still a long ways away. But either way, we are talking about a company that really has no place within this industry. And if these people were talented storytellers and character designers and artists, they would actually be able to be hired at these companies. But they thought, you know what, we are going to change the industry for the better. And when they face a little bit of pushback, they cry about it non-stop. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you found this important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.